Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
This is a catastrophe.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
That's what I wished for when I blew out my candle.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
The floor is yours.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Wednesday. About half the work week in the rearview mirror. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. Got Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. And lots to get to here over the next 2 hours. I'm fired up to be here. Going to talk a little bit about LSU's injury situation. Interim coach Frank Wilson was on the SEC teleconference earlier today and talked about it. I'm going to talk about how that's going to affect LSU on Saturday in Tuscaloosa. It's What If Wednesday. Already got some good ones filed away. We've got room for more. If you're on Twitter and want to hit me at HuntPalmer88 in the Bayou Ford chat, want to fire away there. Take what ifs on football, basketball, baseball, whatever you'd like to talk about. We'll do that in 30 minutes. LSU basketball tips off tonight in the Assembly Center. Tarleton State is the opponent. Billy Gillespie, the head coach at Tarleton State. We'll talk about that at the end of the hour here. I think Tyler Shuck's job got tougher yesterday. We'll briefly talk about that at the top of hour number 2. J.D. Piquel with us on Wednesdays, host of the Hard Count on 3 Sports, talking national college football. And, of course, SEC Power Rankings at 2:30. So, as you can tell, lots to get to. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right to it with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Well, big news yesterday as LSU ushered in a new president, a new chancellor, and then in the hours that followed, an athletic director. Verge Osbury was the interim athletic director. That was announced on Friday of last week. Officially, LSU has not removed the interim tag, but that report surfaced yesterday. We had it over at LouisianaSports.net. Ross Dellinger had it as well. And if you were paying attention earlier today, that was confirmed by President Roos that Verge Osbury will be LSU's new director of athletics. This hire has a lot of layers to it that if you've listened to my show over the course of the last few years, you've heard me talk about these things repeatedly. It's things that I believe in, and a lot of these things that I believe in are intertwined in this situation that LSU has found itself in. And one of the things I've talked about a lot is that the process does not equal the result. You've heard me say this a lot. I talked about hires from all over the country that were very smooth, that didn't work. I've talked about very bumpy hires that did work. I mean, you look at LSU hiring Ed Ogeron. I thought that process was a disaster. They got all the way down the road to try to hire Tom Herman, and when they realized he was going to go to Texas, they didn't try to look elsewhere and decide what else they were going to do. They just ran Ed Ogeron to the podium. Not a great way to do business. It resulted in the greatest college football team we've ever seen. Okay? Texas A&M's hiring of Mike Elko was a grease fire. They had agreed to terms with Mark Stoops. He was getting on the airplane to fly to College Station, and the internet erupted. And they said, well, I guess the internet doesn't like that. We won't do it. They hired Mike Elko. That's going pretty well in College Station right now. LSU's hiring of Brian Kelly was perfect. Quiet. Nobody talked about Brian Kelly, conducted interviews, looked all around the country. And then by the time that Brian Kelly's name surfaced, he was headed to Baton Rouge. That didn't work. It was a failed hire. Like, you look at Mississippi State's hiring of Joe Moorhead, which is not like a famous example, but I just recall being so impressed that, like, Dan Mullen left him. He was a guy that had been there for a very long time, and John Cohen was the AD at Mississippi State, and within a matter of a couple of days, he had Joe Moorhead, who was running a really good offense at Penn State for James Franklin, and not a lot of people were talking about. Boom, he's at the podium. Like, it was very smooth, very clean. Cohen had his guy, made the hire. Complete disaster. Didn't work at all. So, like, you get the point. I could go on and on with examples, but, like, the process doesn't necessarily matter to the result. They're not married. Another thing that I always talk about is the guy next to the guy may not be a guy. I've talked about Smoke Laval standing next to Skip Bertman. Stick with college baseball. Michael Early standing next to Jim Schlossnagle. How'd that work out last year in College Station? Mike Martin Jr. standing next to his dad. Ran Florida State's program into a ditch when he took the reins. I mean, just another example, like in Oregon. Chip Kelly was a high-flying offensive savant at Oregon. They were doing things no one had ever seen offensively, and he stepped away. And they hired Mark Helfrich, and that was a disaster. The guy next to the guy, not always the guy. Another thing that you hear me talk about a lot is I like people that care about LSU. Like, that means something to me in certain situations. And in all of those, like, things that I believe in and things I've talked about in far different situations that don't have anything to do with LSU's athletic director, I've said those time and time again. And I thought about those yesterday when this announcement was made. Like, I don't like this process. I don't like the process that put Verge Osbury in this position. I'm going to talk about Verge in a second, but I don't like this process. I don't like a process where the athletic director is fired and then 40 hours later, an interim AD is put in place. And then on the other side of the weekend, a president is announced, and within 4 hours, he's hired an athletic director. To me, that process is flawed. At LSU, a brand this powerful, an athletic department this big and this successful, I would like to conduct a national search to find the best person you can find for this job. That's my opinion. It's the same feeling I have about Duke's basketball program, North Carolina's basketball program. I didn't like their hires of John Shire and Hubert Davis. They just kind of hired the next guy. I don't like this process. I don't like hiring the guy next to the guy necessarily. It's not always a bad decision, and it may not be a bad decision in this case. But I do think that it's just taking the shortcut. It's just aiming for immediate stability, not the best guy. And I like people that care about LSU. And I talked about Scott Woodward being fired last week, and I talked about how one of the things I liked about Scott was that I knew he cared about LSU. And you certainly know that Verge cares about LSU. Now, you've heard me talk about this process I don't like. You've heard me talk about the guy next to the guy, which Scott Woodward was the guy next, which Verge Osbury is the guy next to Scott Woodward. And you've heard me talk about the fact that Verge loves LSU. The other piece to this is that Verge is very, very qualified for this job. He is. He's been in this athletic department for 30 years. He's worked, well, first of all, he played football here. Like, he was in the athletic department as a student athlete. He's worked in compliance. He's worked with multiple different programs on campus, not just football. You know, there are some people that are just football guys, and that's what they do. They're football. Like, Verge has worked with other programs on this campus. You've heard Kim Mulkey last night talk about Verge and the relationship that she has with him. And so he's worked in that capacity. He's worked in coaching searches, multiple coaching searches at LSU, and not just football. Men's basketball, women's basketball, football. He's been involved in some of those. He's watched Scott Woodward work. He knows the people that matter in this state when it comes to boosters. That's not something he's going to have to learn. And he loves LSU, is something I've talked about. So this is not I'm not criticizing the hire of the person and the resume of Verge Osbury, because I believe that Verge is qualified for this job. I have no idea if he's going to do a bad job or a good job. No idea. But he is qualified for the position. I don't like the process by which LSU got to this situation. So now you move forward. Big concern on Friday. You don't have a president. You don't have an athletic director. You don't have a football coach. Okay. You've got a president and a chancellor now. And you've got an athletic director. So now LSU is in a much better situation on Wednesday of this week than Thursday of last week. You're in a better position to go hire a football coach. Now, we'll see as things come out and this process unfolds how much LSU believes is convicted in these hires and how much they did this so that they can better hire a football coach. Because the football coach on that campus is a very, very important position. You all know this. There are statistics, there are surveys, there are studies done on an athletic department's success and then the university success beyond that. Now, I'm not going to try to compare every single person to Nick Saban. He's the greatest college football coach that has ever walked the planet. But undoubtedly, the University of Alabama flourished as that football program took off and became a machine. And so you understand that hiring a football coach is important, not just to the fans who pack Tiger Stadium, not just to the alumni across the state. it's important to the university. You can have a great university without a good football team, of course. But when you're at this part of the country in a university like LSU that's a state school in the South, like, it's important to have a really good football coach. And I'm confident that that's considered when people at LSU are making decisions. To put a bow on this, I don't like the process that got LSU to this spot. I don't like the way things were handled last week. I don't like the way that we arrived at this decision yesterday. However, there are two different pieces to this. Verge Osbury is qualified for this job. Verge Osbury has put in his time. Verge Osbury knows this university and this state. And Verge Osbury loves LSU. And I'm very, very hopeful that he's going to do an awesome job. And I feel like LSU has a man in charge now that can do a good job. And now LSU pushes off the dock and goes to get a football coach. And undoubtedly, today, as I sit here, they are in a much better position to do that than they were last week, which I would argue was the most chaotic week in the history of LSU football. It's just not very often you have a blowout loss that empties the stadium, a head coach fired, and then a governor media tour that ultimately results in the athletic director's termination. That's a lot to pack into 5 days. You're on the other side of it now. You've got that word that everybody uses, alignment, and it's time to go out and hire a football coach. Everyone kind of knows their role now, where I don't think really anybody knew his or her role middle of last week, and you've got to go make the best decision possible. Verge Osbury is going to be in charge of making that decision. I'm behind him. I hope it is a great one. Verge Osbury, the new athletic director over at LSU. Got plenty to do here. That's our Genesis opening drive. Our Wednesday show is brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. When we come back, got an injury update. Whit Weeks on the defense, Carius Kern on the offense. What does it mean moving forward to Alabama? We'll do it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that is on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. And every new purchase at Genesis of Baton Rouge comes with America's best warranty. It's industry leading. It's the peace of mind that comes with it. With a 100,000-mile, 10-year powertrain warranty. With a 5-year, 60,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty. How bummed are you when you realize, going to have to spend some cash on that vehicle? That's never a great feeling. But when you've got that warranty in your back pocket, America's best warranty, the peace of mind is phenomenal. You also have that enhanced 24/7 roadside assistance, 5 years, unlimited miles. For 5 years, you don't have to worry. And then you've got the convenience that comes with that complimentary valet scheduled maintenance for 3 years. You don't have to worry about the oil changes. You don't have to worry about the air filter. You don't have to worry about the wiper blades or the wiper fluid. They got you covered at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Go by and see them, airline at PQ, or check them out online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com, GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
Looking to get in the pool of your dreams for next pool season? You can do that at Renaissance Homes and Pools. I think the time's passed for 2025. I'm running this week in hooded sweatshirts and pants, so probably not pool time, although the high's like 80 today, so I guess technically you could go out there this afternoon if you'd like to. But you can get into the pool of your dreams for 2026 if you just contact my guy, Joey Blanchard, at Renaissance Homes and Pools. I give you Joey's cell phone number every single week, and it makes it pretty easy to get in touch with him. He's the owner of the company. You call his cell. How good is that to work with a local company? Is at 225-252-7745. He'll be with you start to finish. First consultation, the design process, Joey's right there with you every step of the way. Digging that pool, he's there. Building that pool, he's there. The finish of that pool, he is there. You want to add an outdoor kitchen, they can do that at Renaissance Homes and Pools as well. If you're thinking of getting that backyard to be everything you ever wanted it to be, with the pool, with the outdoor kitchen, the hosting areas, They got you covered at Renaissance Homes and Pools. Check them out online at builtbyrenaissance.com. All right, Frank Wilson was on the SEC Coaches Teleconference today, and he updated the status of Whit Weeks and Carius Kern. I will start with Carius Kern, who we talked about yesterday with the offensive line. Wilson said Carius will have a chance. I think his progress has been a steady one. He's played more and more in each one of the practices, so I'm optimistic that he'll have an opportunity to play for us. That certainly is not a ringing endorsement that Kern's going to be ready to go. I think there's a chance. We spoke about it yesterday. You're going to look at a situation where DJ Chester is the next man up at that spot, puts Weston Davis at right tackle, DJ Chester at left tackle. It's not ideal for LSU in any way, shape, or form, but you'd certainly rather have Kern than not have him, especially because I believe LSU is intent on running the ball a lot in this game. And Carius Kern's just a big physical dude that can help run the football. Is he the best pass protector at left tackle in the Southeastern Conference? No, he's not. You saw that in the A&M game, but he's big, he's physical, he can move some people, and I think that if he can play, they'd love to have him in there. The more impactful situation here might be Whit Weeks, and the message on Weeks wasn't as positive. Wilson said, I think he's probably more doubtful at this time considering today. We'll see how today's practice goes and how he looks, but we're hopeful. And then he continued on when asked a follow-up question about what Weeks is able to do. And y'all realize that Whit Weeks has been in a walking boot for like a month. This is what Frank Wilson had to say. He can put weight on it. He can straight line run. He'll be on the practice field, but the game isn't just linear. Our sport is one of starting, stopping, changing direction, awkward position, bodies falling on you, acceleration, deceleration, jump, come down, those things. That's the true test. If you walked out today and asked him to run, he could do that. We've got to put him in situations to gauge his pain tolerance to see if he could. And he has a high threshold for pain tolerance, but you just don't know because it's not just muscles that are in there. Sometimes it's nerves or other things that can annoy. We'll just see if that subsides. So point is, like, he's feeling better. He can run, but the change of direction, everything that goes into playing inside linebacker in the Southeastern Conference just may not be there for him. This is something that jumped off the page at me today, and it deals with Whit Weeks a little bit, and it deals with LSU's competition level a little bit, and it deals with everything that goes into stopping the run a little bit. But Weeks is certainly a part of this. I'm going to read out for you the rushing totals against LSU's defense this season. Just do them in order. I know numbers don't play great on radio, but you'll get this. At Clemson, LSU gave up 31 rushing yards. Louisiana Tech, LSU gave up 58 running yards. Florida, 79 rushing yards. Southeastern, 88 rushing yards. Those were with Whit Weeks at full health. You get to the point where he gets hurt in the Ole Miss game. LSU gave up, and keep in mind, those numbers were 31, 58, 79, 88. Like, all under 90 yards, including Florida with 79 and Clemson with 31. Weeks gets hurt against Ole Miss. They give up 166. Then you got South Carolina. Weeks limited in that game. They ran for 193. Vanderbilt, Weeks doesn't play. 239 rushing yards. A&M, Weeks doesn't play. 224 rushing yards. 166, 193, 239, 224. Vanderbilt and Texas A&M ran for 463 yards against LSU. I don't know how much of this is on Whit Weeks' injury. I don't know. I'm confident in suggesting that Texas A&M, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt are better rushing offenses than Clemson, Louisiana Tech, Florida, and Southeastern. That is certainly a part of it. But you also look at this, and it perfectly falls in line not only with that ramp up in competition, but with Weeks being out. And I'm not here to suggest that Whit Weeks is the perfect linebacker. But anybody who finishes second in the Southeastern Conference in tackles is doing something. Now, keep in mind, in the Florida game, he didn't really play as well. That's a caveat here. He got the targeting call. And look, Devon Key stepped in and had a monster night in tackling. But you got to think that somebody who finishes second in the SEC in tackles last year would help this a little bit. And right now, LSU's run defense is not only not great, not elite, not good. LSU's run defense is bad. It's bad. And I told you all August, I'm just speaking for myself here. I told you all August, this defense is good, y'all. Defensive front's good. Linebackers can play. They're physical. They're deep. Like, it's going to be a good run defense. And then I told you after the Clemson game, Clemson just quit trying to run it. They ran it once in the second half. And I felt like this was a championship-level defense against the run, against the pass. I felt good about the guys they had rushing the passer. I said all this. And you look at what they've done the last month, it's not good. It's not great. It stinks. It's awful. 166 against Ole Miss, 193 against South Carolina, 239 against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt didn't even run that many plays. 224 against Texas A&M. And it's different ways. Like, Ole Miss is doing it with the tempo that they want to run with, and they're running it up the middle with a good running back in Lacey, and they've got Chambliss who can test the edges. South Carolina's a bit more helter-skelter, but they busted a 60-plus yard touchdown run on you for a big play. Sellers can get going a little bit. Vanderbilt is doing a little bit of triple option, a little bit of improvisation from Pavia, some quarterback runs, some just testing you in your discipline. And then Texas A&M, like Marcel Reed, got loose for 100 yards. Like, it's not just like one thing that LSU can't stop. Yeah, the running quarterback's a problem, but like Sellers didn't crush you. Chambliss did, Pavia did, Reed certainly did. But there are also the big plays. Like, it's everything with the run that you're not doing. And you've got Whit Weeks out. Keys is not quite that level. West Weeks, not quite that level. And, Perkins has to do some different things. You've seen the tape that Hester and Flynn have shown you. Sometimes he's a spy and not getting there. I feel like you're missing a lot with Weeks. And I think there are a lot of you that would go, oh, obviously you're missing a lot with Whit Weeks. He's the captain of the team. He's an All-American. He was a preseason first-team All-SEC linebacker. Like, yeah, you're missing a lot. But I thought when he went out, like, they've got, like, Keys has played a lot. And West Weeks is a fifth-year senior, and Harold Perkins is supposed to be your most dynamic defender. And, like, you've got a front that's deep in the tackle with McKinley and with Jacoby and Guillory, and you get Bro in there, and then all of a sudden you did get Gooden back, and you got Pyburn, who's supposed to be a champion up there stopping the run, and Patrick Payton's a fourth-year player, and yeah, you lost Relaford, but you've got some physicality and some depth up there. You should be okay. They're not okay. They're getting gashed. Now, Bama hasn't done a lot of that to anybody. We went through the numbers yesterday. Bama's in the hundreds in rushing offense. They have not been a team that's leaned heavily on the run. Jam Miller's a really talented back. He's been in and out of the lineup with injuries, but they've done most of their work through the air. So maybe in this game, if Whit Weeks doesn't play, and it sounds very much like listening to Frank Wilson today that he's not going to play, like maybe Alabama tries to push you a little bit more on the run. And then who does that favor? Does it favor LSU because you take the ball out of Simpson's hands a little bit? Or does it, is it a spot where Alabama can hurt LSU on the ground like these other teams have, and that makes Simpson even better through the air? Just remains to be seen. But we didn't know the severity of this injury when Whit Weeks had it. I thought when he kind of gave it a go against South Carolina that he would probably fight through this pretty quickly, but he just hadn't gotten out of that walking boot. And it seems like he's finally out of that. Maybe he can go against Arkansas next week, but right now, as you look at it, it's just hard to see a scenario where Whit Weeks goes against Alabama, and you just continue to wonder if LSU's defense is just that severely compromised without him out there, or if this is just a matter of they weren't that good in the first place. Maybe we get our answer on Saturday, but it's a bummer that Whit Weeks it just was looking like such a promising leader for this team and right in the guts of that schedule. I mean, you don't need Whit Weeks against Tech or Southeastern. You didn't really use him against Florida, but for the guts of this schedule, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, Bama, like that is the guts of the schedule. It's the toughest part of your schedule. To not have him is really disappointing. Sounds like they won't get him on Saturday, so big bummer there for LSU. All right, we got a lot of good What If Wednesdays that have come in via Twitter as well as Bayou Ford Chat, so we'll continue to mine some of those out of there. In the commercial break, we'll come back and do them. Some about LSU football, some with LSU basketball, some with the Saints, and a little bit of travel as well. So we'll get into that when we come back on this Wednesday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge. SwingEasyGCBR.com is the website. Awesome place to work on your game. If you're an avid golfer or if you're trying to get into golf, winter makes it tough, obviously. grass doesn't grow on the range, can be cold or windy, or the wet stays a little bit longer, gets dark earlier. It's just a tough time to try to work on your golf game. But you can at Swing Easy Golf Club because none of those elements matter. You walk in to their facility there on Seagan at Perkins. You go to one of your private bays. You crank up the simulator on the driving range, and you hit golf balls for as long as you like. You hit golf balls. You see the trajectory in the flight path on that monitor. You can see your ball speed, your carry distance. You can see the slow-mo impact of your club face on the ball. I found that particularly helpful when I was doing it at Swing Easy Golf Club. It's a great place to work on your game so that when the warm weather warms back up in the spring and getting towards the summer, you hadn't felt like you've taken 6 months off golf. You don't have to down here in South Louisiana. So check them out, Seagan at Perkins. You can find them online at swingeasygcbr.com. Memberships are available. Great place to hang out as well, but also an awesome place to work on your game at Swing Easy Golf Club, swingeasygcbr.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
Chugging along here, Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. LSU basketball tonight at the PMAC. They'll play Tarleton State. I want to talk about that a little bit here at the end of the hour. It's exciting to me when LSU gets onto the basketball court. I don't have massively high expectations for this team, but I'm hopeful they can make things interesting after the turn of the year, and we'll see their first edition tonight in the PMAC against Billy Gillespie in Tarleton State. Interestingly, so I'll give you some of the thoughts on that at the end of the hour. But for right now, let's do some What If Wednesday.
Time, space, reality. It's more than a linear path. Where a single choice can branch out into infinite realities. Follow me and ponder the question. What if?
All right, to start this bad boy off, we have what if LSU wins out down the stretch?
I don't think it's enough to get into the playoff. I think you're 9-3. I think you got some nice wins. At Alabama's a really nice win. At Oklahoma's a really nice win. But I don't think it's enough to get in the playoffs when you consider that Alabama's still probably in at 10-2. Yeah. Texas A&M is in. I think Georgia's in. You still got to look at
Texas still scrappy.
Yeah, Texas is still there. Vanderbilt's still there.
Yeah,
and did I mention Ole Miss?
Yeah,
They're
Ole
still
Miss,
there.
yeah,
So you've got a lot of teams that you're jockeying for, and you have three losses. So I don't think you get in. It becomes a question of Frank Wilson, and I can't pretend to know what the results of this search are going to be or what the parameters are put in. Like, if the governor's telling you that you can only spend so much money on a coach and you can only structure a contract one certain way, and you got all these other teams in there that are willing to spend more money and are willing to guarantee contracts, maybe you are going to hire your interim coach. I don't know, but I think that Frank's candidacy would be considered at that point.
Yeah.
Whether or not he would get that job, let's let it play out and see how things go over the last month. But if LSU wins out, I think they're short of the playoff, and Frank Wilson's candidacy would be more closely considered than if LSU went 2-2 or 1-3 down the stretch.
Yeah. The morale for the team will be huge going into next year for sure. What if LSU doesn't have a coach for National Signing Day? That kind of scares me a little bit.
Yeah, you'll lose a lot out of the class. Yeah. It just is what it is, and that would have been a really, really big deal 8 years ago. Losing essentially a class, maybe signing 9 or 11 guys would have been a big, big deal. It's still not ideal in this situation. You've got some really good players committed, and even some out of this state. You don't want to lose some of the best players in the country that are right here in your backyard, but you may, because they're going to want to sign. They're going to want to enroll early, and if you don't have a coach, they're going to do that somewhere else. But it's not the death knell to a program that it once was. Do you want to keep these high school guys around? Yes. Do you realize that some of the high school guys that signed are just going to be Zalance Hurd, who show up for a year, get on the field for 2 games and leave? Like, that's the way things go. Walker Howard was massively lauded around here as a potential 5-star quarterback, and he ended up coming here, and then he goes to Ole Miss, and now he's at ULL and unfortunately got hurt. But, like, that's what a lot of this stuff is. You want them all to be Will Campbell. That's awesome. Harlan Berry looks like a star, and you want to get those guys in. But if the what if is what if LSU doesn't have a coach for National Signing Day, you're going to lose significant pieces of this class. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I just think that LSU fans should probably temper their reaction to when the 18-year-old puts on Twitter, I'm decommitting and I'm going to A&M or I'm going to Florida or I'm going to Michigan or whatever. Like, go to the portal, get some new guys. You just gotta. That's the way you gotta operate here, and that's so it'll be different, but it'll be part of the process.
All right. So what if you can only visit / excuse me. What if you can only live in / visit 3 states for the rest of your life? You're allowed gas, meal, layover, stops along the way, but you have to keep moving through others.
So I can set my feet down essentially in 3 states moving forward. Louisiana is an obvious one. I'm going to live here. This is home. This is where my family is. This is where LSU is. This is where work is. I have no interest in going anywhere else ever. So Louisiana is one. I get 2 places to essentially go. You got to consider logistics here a little bit. And you got to consider the fact that I don't care that much about travel. Like, there are only so many life experiences that I really crave. I like playing golf a lot. I like watching the Cubs a lot. I like the beach. I don't need to see every corner of the country. I don't ever need to set foot in a national park of any kind ever. I don't ever need to hike. I don't need to see a mountain. So for me, like, number one, I've got to put Illinois on the list because I have to go watch the Cubs. I want to go to Wrigley Field. I want to drink a cold beer in the outfield a lot of times in the summer with my kids, with my wife, I want to go to Wrigley. That's something I want to do. Chicago is a city that I love. I love to eat there. I love to go to Cubs games there. I love to see shows there. I love the vibes. I love the summer. So Illinois, definitely one. And then my third one, I'm probably going to go practical here, and I'm going to go Florida.
Okay, you had to go Florida.
Yeah, I can go to the 30A. If I can drive over there and vacation on the beach. If I want to go watch the Cubs play in Miami or Tampa, I can do that. There are famous golf courses there. I can go play TPC Sawgrass that's in Florida. I can go down there and play Trump Doral in Miami where they played PGA Tour events. Like, there are golf courses all over that place that you can go visit.
Yeah.
I like Miami. We honeymooned there and I had a good time there. I can spend time there even in the winter. So is it the greatest? Like, California may offer a little bit more in terms of variety because there's better weather up in Northern California, and I'd get to go to San Francisco and San Diego, which is a totally different vibe. And Florida's kind of all the same for more or less. But I can't get to California really quickly like that, like I can to Florida. So for me, I think out of practicality, I'm going Louisiana, Illinois, and Florida. You got thoughts on that?
Mine would have to be Colorado for sure. Denver. I love Denver.
Okay.
It's a little out the way. I haven't been there during the winter time, so it's a little sketchy. I didn't drive on the snow and all that, so I don't, that's a little scary. And it's hard not to go Florida. It's just hard.
Okay.
It's just so much that Florida offers. So I'll say Florida, Colorado. I guess I got to say Louisiana. My family here. Just because of the family. Just because of the family.
Home is where the heart is.
Yeah, if you cut me open, I'm bleeding black and gold. I ain't bleeding Pelicans. I'll bleed the Saints though. Speaking of the Saints, what if the Saints go 1-16?
I think it's obvious if they go 1-16. You're picking first in the draft, and you're drafting a quarterback first overall. I mean,
Sellers?
Is it an indictment on Kellen Moore? I don't know if it is or not. Is it an indictment on Tyler Shuck?
Yes, it is.
Probably.
The only reason I'm gonna say that, Hunt, is because you play the Jets. If you can't beat the Jets at this point, the state of affair the Jets are in, you lose that game. Yes, that is an indictment on Kellen Moore and Shuck, 100%. Because they don't want to win.
Yeah, but if at that point Shuck's gonna be toast, and Kellen Moore, you hope you get a better roster for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they go and that's the deal. Like, if you're a Saints fan, you're probably not bummed out when they lose because you're maybe moving in the right direction when you lose. Unfortunately.
Yeah. What is the race to the bottom? Race to the bottom. So what if you had to bet $100 on a national champion this year, and every team had the same odds?
I'd go with Ohio State.
Okay.
It's almost impossible to find a scenario where Texas A&M doesn't get in the playoffs, and I think they're very good. But Ohio State is unbeaten. They've got the best player on offense and maybe the best player on defense. Yeah. I think that I would probably go with them, but I think it's fairly open. I think there's some teams that can win it, and I think A&M certainly one of them. But I would take to Ohio State if I was getting 1-to-1 back on everybody. I would go Ohio State.
it's hard not to go Ohio State with that because, like you said, everybody has the same odds, and they're most likely going to win it again. You know what? I've been with Jimmy a little bit. I'm a gambler. Let's go Kurt Signetti. Let's throw some on Indiana. You know what? Let's for giggles. Okay. So from Brian in the chat, number. Wait, what is it? Number?
No, that's just a hashtag.
Okay. So from Brian in the chat, what if you could go back in time and give your younger self some advice? What would it be? Oh, that's a good one, man.
That is interesting. I mean, it's hard not to like go super deep on that.
Yeah, for real.
If I'm guaranteeing, if I'm talking about I know what's going to happen, I would just say it's going to be all right. Like it's going to be all right. It's going to
be all right. Yes.
You've had some hiccups along the way, professionally, personally, all those things happen. But it's going to be okay. I mean, I've gotten to the place where I really wanted to be anyway. So like it's those bumps along the road are not going to last. And I think at times when you're younger, something that happens to you seems like maybe the worst thing ever, and it generally speaking is not. Everyone has their own sets of problems, and everybody's in a different situation. But generally speaking, especially you're in your teens, you're in your early 20s, like you can pretty much recover from just about anything at that point. Now, I can't put a blanket over every scenario, but certainly things that have happened in my life, you can move right on through.
Well, no, that's great advice because as somebody in their early 20s, I definitely know where you're coming from. So mine will have to be to younger Jordan. Hey, man, do not drive in that hurricane. Leave it alone. Stay in your dorm. Do not drive in that hurricane. That's the advice.
Did we get in a wreck?
Oh, yeah. I had a 2001 Chevy Monte Carlo, my dad's car I gave me. I got in high school. That was my baby. It was like Hurricane Zeta or something. I'm in college, and it's just stupidness.
Took it out for a spin?
I went to visit somebody, and I should have just stayed over there. And I was like, I can make it back. I can make it back to Southern. I can make it back. Didn't know Scenic Highway floods very bad. And if you know anything about a Monte Carlo, it sits on the ground. So you can see where the issue comes when you go down the street and it looks like the ocean and you're in a Monte Carlo. So, yeah, that would be what I tell a 19, 20-year-old Jordan. Yeah, bro, stay inside. It's not smart.
Good thought there in the chat. Just take every cent to your name and buy Bitcoin. I still don't know what Bitcoin is, but I would be in a better situation if I had bought a bunch of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Best I can tell, everyone just buys it to sell it, and I don't get it. But I should have bought a lot of it instead of zero.
Bitcoin or, a lot of sports bets. I would have been every Super Bowl national champion. I'm on that.
Got a lot of Bilbo Baggins in the chat says, expand your horizon. There's more to the world than sports. I'm confident there is more in the world of sports. I just don't care that much about all of the other stuff. I don't care. I don't need to see a pretty park. I don't need to walk through the woods and hike. I'm thrilled that people love to do that. Yeah. I get nothing out of it. It's like most people would get nothing out of going to play golf. Yeah. Most people get nothing out of going to watch LSU practice baseball, but I like to do that. So I don't care about nature. I don't care about seeing the sights. I don't care about politics. There's a lot of things I don't care about. My horizons are very much not expanded. But thankfully, I've gotten to do something now that doesn't require me to expand those horizons. So I'll keep them pretty narrow. That's where we are. So that's What If Wednesday here on this Wednesday. Come back, talk some LSU basketball there on the hardwood tonight. 3 things to look for next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. If you've got a bathroom that maybe was built in the 90s, has one of those huge jacuzzi-style tubs, and you walk by it every day and go, I never use this thing. It is just a massive waste of space. Well, you're not alone. And a lot of people have called David Duvall and fixed that issue because they take out that big hunkin' jacuzzi tub they never use and put in a big shower to use that space where you're actually going to use it. That's what David Duvall and his team can do for you. It doesn't have to be a massive renovation, a huge expansion that is massive dollar signs and weeks on end. That's not what we're talking about every single time here with One Bath and Closets. They can do something like a tub to shower conversion that can be done within a week and can be affordable. And it changes the entire dynamic of your bathroom. That's something you've never really considered, but now that I say it, you go, that makes some sense. Contact David. Go to onebathandclosets.com. Set up that free consultation. He'll let you know where to move forward He's been doing it for 30 years. He could help you next, as he's done for dozens and dozens in Baton Rouge. One Bath and Closets. Find him online, onebathandclosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
All right, wrapping up hour number 1 here. Wednesday show is brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. LSU tonight, 7 o'clock, Pete Maravich Assembly Center. We'll open up the season on the hardwood against Tarleton State. Tarleton State led by Billy Gillespie, former Texas A&M coach, former Kentucky coach, who was at Texas Tech, stepped down for health concerns, then actually went to his alma mater, Ranger College, where he went to junior college, coached there for 5 years, and now he's been Tarleton State for a couple of years. They actually opened their season on Monday, and they lost by 20 to SMU in Dallas. They'll come now to Baton Rouge. And look, I talked about this a lot. I watched really bad LSU basketball teams in my day, and back that team 3 years ago that was just incapable of winning a game in Matt McMahon's first year. I went and I was watching them play in February, and I would go to the games. People go, why would you go to that? Like they're 1-14 in the league. I like watching LSU play basketball. I like when they put the purple and gold on. I like basketball. I like watching them go play. And I'm excited to go in there and watch them tonight. I think this team is improved over last year. I think the biggest improvement's going to be at point guard. I think Deion Thomas is the real deal. I still have to figure out if we're going with Deion Thomas or DJ Thomas for Deion Thomas Jr. We'll find that out tonight. I've heard both. He's the point guard. He's left-handed. He's not the most explosive athlete in the world, but he's quick, and he's got great court awareness and ability to distribute. He scored 15 points in the second half against Central Florida, had 16 overall, had 9 assists. He diced up Central Florida in the second half of that game, and they're going to initiate most of their offense through him at the top of the key with a lot of ball screens. Excited to watch him. I'm curious what LSU does on the wing tonight. In the game against Central Florida, Max McKinnon, a 6'7" wing from Portland, who's a really good shooter, manned a lot of those minutes. You also saw Marquel Sutton play the 3 at 6'9". He's a big and explosive athlete. Was Conference Player of the Year last year at Omaha. And those two guys manned the wing. I expect to see Ron Zipper at some point, the Israeli who played 4 years of professional basketball in Israel. He's a 26-year-old freshman. He didn't play in the exhibition. He's missed some practice time. I'm not sure what the situation is there, but I would expect him to play. He's a little bit more closer to 6'4". He's also left-handed. I would expect to see him play a little bit on the wing as well. I don't know if you're going to see much of Mozzie Mosley, the freshman, but potentially P.J. Carter, who's a Memphis transfer, who's a great shooter, could log some of those minutes as well. I want to see what they do at the wing. I know that Deion Thomas is going to play the point. I know that Michael Nwoku and Jalen Reed are going to play a ton in the front court. But the 2 and the 3, I think there's a lot of room to see what happens there, and I'm curious to see what that looks like. As far as this matchup goes tonight, LSU has a huge side advantage. Tarleton State did not start anyone over 6'6" against SMU and didn't play anyone over 6'6", 20 minutes against SMU. So you look at Michael Nwoku, who's 6'10", 260. Look at Jalen Reed, who's 6'10", 240, 245. Like, that's a big size and strength advantage over Tarleton State. I think you'll rebound really well with that, but I'd also like to see LSU get the ball down onto the block and get some easy buckets around a shorter team. That's the advantage in this game. When it pertains to the big picture, that's what we're going to look at with this LSU team for this entire 2-month stretch. Like, they've got a stretch of some solid non-conference games. You play Boston College, you play Drake, you play Georgia Tech, you play Texas Tech, like play SMU. There are some good teams in later in December that you'll see, but like last year LSU did a really good job in the non-conference and they couldn't compete in the SEC. So we're not going to really learn anything until January unless it's negative. If you can't beat some of these teams, that's going to be a red flag for January, but we're not going to learn anything really positive until January. So big picture, like, I just like to see LSU make some shots from 3. They may not be a great three-point shooting team this year. Thomas has not been a great shooter in 2 years at UNLV. He's a good shooter. McKinnon should be a really good shooter. I think Zipper should be a really good shooter. P.J. Carter should be a really good shooter. Jalen Reed shot it pretty well from 3 late in his freshman year for a big, not he's not going to shoot 40%, but for a big. Hopefully they make some shots because last year you got into conference play, and outside of Cam Carter, just nobody shot the ball worth a flip. You lost Tyrell Ward before the season started. Jai Bailey wasn't a shooter at all. Mike Williams took a step like 12 percentage points back in his shooting. Jordan Sears stepped back about 10 percentage points from his time at UT Martin shooting. Like, they just couldn't shoot the ball. I'd like to see the ball go through the bucket a little bit from three-point range tonight. It's just really hard to win basketball games when you can't spread the floor. And so that's something I'm going to be watching for. Tonight, if you're going to the game, you don't really know anything about this team, just watch the point guard, watch Thomas work. He's really a technician down there, and I'm excited to watch him play in the SEC. And I think LSU should be just fine. And I haven't checked the point spread on the game. I think I can find it. I've got about a minute and 20 seconds here. See what we can find. I'm going to guess it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 18 would be my guess. It's 15.5. So I was around there, 15.5 tonight for LSU. They should handle themselves in this game. You got a lot of big size advantage and a big talent advantage. I'm not going to sell you a bill of goods on this LSU team right now. I'm not going to tell you they're in the tournament. I do think there's a chance the SEC is not quite as good this year, but that's something we'll learn down the line. For tonight, watch the point guard. You've got a size advantage. Get some balls to go through the net, stay healthy, and get off to a decent start in the PMAC. If you're going to the game tonight, they open the gates. In between the open of the gates and 10 minutes to tip off, they've got their buzzer beater special, so half off of some food items, of beer. So if you get there early enough, half off on some concessions until 10 minutes before tip off at the PMAC. I'll be there tonight. Looking forward to it. Hope to see y'all out there tonight. LSU and Tarleton State at 7. That'll do it for hour number 1. Lot to do in hour number 2. Including J.D. Pickell and our power rankings. We'll pause for national headlines and come back with more on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.